Hare Krishna. Sarva Sastra Vipiyusa Sarva Vadaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadhya Sarvalakaka Drikpada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalitvanto Tita Ditya Sri Krishna Paribhaktita. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all the Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you who are enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned among us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varsyak Sarayate Sarvata Sarvasefyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Mateka Bandha Matsangin Matkaruman Mahadana Manistarka Matbhakya Mamananda Namostate. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my Lord, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. Asadu sadhu dadain atene chochataraka Hanamansha kadachimam premarit kantayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, a giver of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the very fallen, please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest upon my heart and my throat, accompanied by pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna. We are entering today chapter 5 of Canto 7. Keshavari Prabhu, can you mute your mic? I tried to mute you, but it doesn't happen. And there is disturbance for all the other students and for the recording. So please mute yourself. Okay, that's better. So last lessons we discussed chapter 4. What do you remember about the qualities of Hiranyakashipu and the qualities of Prahlad Maharaj, or that we discussed last time, or whatever you remember? Please share, raise your hand, and please make one point that yes, Mother Divya Lila, please speak.
Please accept my humble obeisances. Even though Prahlad Maharaj was born in an aristocratic family, he was without pride, and he was constant remembrance of the Lord, which is unique about Prahlad Maharaj.
Yeah.
And the shloka said, Krishna Graha Grahitatma.
Good. He was the example of Smaranam, always remembering Krishna. If I ask you to raise your hand, then raising your hand means that you click the button, raise your hand. So raising your hand on your video, that's too difficult. So there are two who raised their hand further, Vasudev Prabhu and Prabhat Priya Prabhu. Please learn how to work with these functions in Zoom. Thank you. Vasudev Krishna Prabhu. Yes, what point do you remember?
I remember the point that he had unflinching faith in the Lord, and he also had unalloyed devotion to him. So that was the point and it was very natural. His attachment to Lord Krishna was very natural.
So natural attachment, spontaneous. Thank you. Mother
Yes.
Prabhupada Priya.
I remember that he was so absorbed in thoughts of Krishna that he wasn't even aware of what was going on with his body or his external surroundings. So yeah, that made me think that when he was being tormented by Hiranyakashipu, that he wasn't so disturbed by it because he was in such a state of internal absorption that it wasn't really affecting him. It was like a child that was like dependent on the parents and didn't need to worry about his, his external needs.
Yes, sure. Thank you. That's an important point. He was so absorbed that he was not aware of his material body. Good. Pavitra Prabhu, please speak. No. Okay. I'll mention a few more points that we went into in the two kinds of mentality. The demoniac mentality and the mentality of a pure devotee. And how one, by cultivating these different mentalities, one gets different results. That's an important point in all these chapters. It started with discussing the impartiality of the Supreme Lord. And that's an essential point. We are free to develop whatever mentality, and Krishna reciprocates. We see that also Hiranyakashipu had everything what he desired, but if he remained dissatisfied, that he had control over everything, but he had no control over his own senses. And Prahlad Maharaj, he could change the heart of all his demonic friends. Thus, he was in Vatsalya Ras with Nrsingadev, we discussed, reverse Vatsalya Ras. We only discussed that everything went nice under the government of Hiranyakashipu. He was an expert manager. And we saw that even the great sages, they were glorifying Hiranyakashipu. But Prahlad Maharaj, he had a nice relationship with others because he had a mentality, the inner attitude of a menial servant. And now we will be hearing in the beginning of this chapter from demons who accepted Sukracharya as their priest. So text 1. The great sage Narada Muni said, the demons headed by Hiranyakashipu accepted Sukracharya as their priest for ritualistic ceremonies. Sukracharya's two sons, Sanda and Amarka, lived near Hiranyakashipu's palace. The beginning of the life story of Prahlad is recounted as follows. Shukracharya became the priest of the atheists, especially Hiranyakasipu, and thus his two sons, Sanda and Amarka, resided near Hiranyakasipu's residence. Shukracharya should not have become the priest of Hiranyakasipu because Hiranyakasipu and his followers were all atheists. A Brahmin should become the priest of a person interested in the advancement of spiritual culture. The very name Shukracharya, however, indicates that a person interested in obtaining benefits for his sons and descendants, regardless of how the money comes. A real Brahmin would not become a priest for atheistic man. So, Sridhar Swami comments on this. Because of the demons' hatred to the Lord's devotees, they accepted Shukracharya as their priest. Interesting. That the reason why he did not like devotional service is that Hiranyakasipu accepted Shukracharya as priest. And the name, Srila Prabhupada in a lecture says, the name Shukracharya says it all. So we heard that also in the purport. Srila Prabhupada makes the same point. But why does an atheist want to have a priest? That in a lecture on this verse in Bombay, Srila Prabhupada spoke about the name Shukracharya. It comes from Saukriyam, generated from Samina. But there is also Shrotriyam. By hearing from the spiritual master, that is the real spiritual generation. Interesting. He makes these 2 points. Shraukyam, Sotriam. Saukriyam, seminal descendants that but a devotee becomes reformed and born spiritually by Shrotriyam, by hearing. Not by, so it's by Shrotriyam, not by Saukriyam, the real thing. So Shukracharya was from seminal descendants, and he was a family guru. So that's in India is a tradition, and that goes back many, many years. That the Cinema Bharat, Damya was also a family priest. That so family gurus, special phenomena. Text 2. Prahlad Maharaj was already educated in devotional service, but when his father sent him to those 2 sons of Shukracharya to be educated, they accepted him at their school along with the other sons of the Asuras. Text 3. Prahlad Maharaj certainly heard and recited the topics of politics and economics taught by the teachers, but he understood that political philosophy involves considering someone a friend and someone else an enemy, and thus he did not like this. This we will try to understand more deeply. That politics involves accepting one group of men as enemies and another group as friends. Everything in politics is based on this philosophy, and the entire world, especially at the present is engrossed in it. The public is concerned with friendly countries and friendly groups, or enemy countries and enemy groups. But as stated in Bhagavad-Gita, a learned person does not make distinctions between enemies and friends. Devotees especially do not create friends and enemies. A devotee sees that every living being is part and parcel of Krishna. Amaibam Shiva Bhuta. Therefore, a devotee treats friends and enemies equally by trying to educate them in Krishna consciousness. Of course, atheistic men do not follow the instructions of pure devotees, but instead consider a devotee their enemy. A devotee, however, never creates a situation of friendship and enmity. Although Prahlad was obliged to hear the instructions of Sanda and Amarka, he did not like the philosophy of friends and enemies, which forms the basis of politics. He was not interested in this philosophy. So friends and enemies is the subject of politics. So Srila Prabhupada is referring to a spiritual vision where there are no friends and enemies. Bhagavad Gita 5:18. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmana Kava Hasni Sunishiv Swapakasha Pandita Samadakshana. He sees the spirit soul everywhere. Sees everyone is a part and parcel of Krishna, is a servant of Krishna. So nobody is a competitor, nobody is a friend or enemy. There should be unity in the purpose of serving the Supreme Lord, seeing equally the soul in the spirit soul in the heart of a Brahmin, an elephant, a dog eater. That also of course, in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also, is the Satru and the Mitra seeing enemy and friends alike with equal vision. That's the qualities of saintly person are described. We heard that in the 3rd canto, the teachings of Kapila Dev, chapter 25. Titikshvara Karunika Surdam Sarvadenam Ajata Satrava Santas Sadava Sadabhushana Ajata Satrava Santa. Yeah, enemy or friends, seeing them equal. It is said Yudhishthira Maharaj had no enemies. Others saw him as an enemy. But Yudhishthira Maharaj had no enemies. And when his enemies were in trouble, then he would try to save them. You see in this astounding story in the Mahabharata, Duryodhana came to make fun of the Pandavas, but on the way he got issues with Gandharvas. And what happened? The Gandharvas intercepted them and captured Duryodhana. And someone ran to Yudhishthira and said that Duryodhana was captured. And Bhima became so happy. But Yudhishthira said, no, this is our family. We must go. You, Bhima, Arjun must go and save them. So they released Duryodhana from the Gandharvas. Ajatu Satra. Yudhishthira is a very good example of this Ajatu Shastra. That it's also mentioned in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Advesta Sarva Bhutanam. One is non-envious of all the entities. Maitra Karuna Eva, merciful to everyone. devotees especially do not create friends and enemies. Because the reason is they see everyone as a part and parcel of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada was lecturing on Nrsimhadev Appearance Day in Bombay. In Bombay, there was a huge struggle for land. So there was a drama. Devotees were performing a drama and Hiranyakasipu played his part very nicely. Then Srila Prabhupada was referring to the fight for the land, to the owner of the land, who had a heart attack and died. And Srila Prabhupada had been praying to Krishna for this demon to die. The struggle is between the two parties, the atheist and the theist. So the story of Prahlad is eternally true. What happened a few million years ago is happening today. The struggle between atheist and theist. As devotees, you will find so many animals because we are in a world full of demons. That even Krishna, when he was present, he had to kill so many demons. That so, an example, when Kamsa heard the voice saying that the 8th child of Devaki will kill you, immediately he wanted to kill Devaki. And then later he let them go, and Vasudeva was bringing his sons. He was going to spare the sons, but Narada came and then gave him a message, and then immediately he put Vasudeva and Devaki in prison. That even the father and mother of Krishna had to suffer so much because of Krishna. Kamsa killed all the children of Devaki. That so there are so many stories. Even in Indian history, there was a ruler, Aryamsa, who killed his brother and put his father in jail. So this is the history of demoniac society. Ultimately, they want to kill God, but they cannot do it, and therefore they declare God is dead. When Srila Prabhupada went to the West, there was a headline in America in the newspaper. And the title was, God lives. And Srila Prabhupada was the one who was showing that God was alive. Srila Prabhupada was fighting with these demons right from the beginning. So God is never killed. The demon is killed by God. That we will see in this lila. Srila Prabhupada compared Hiranyakasipu to the materialistic scientists who are very clever. Hiranyakasipu was very clever at thinking that how he could become immortal. That in India, the idea of these demons is like Hiranyakasipu, that they will live forever and enjoy sense gratification. This is the idea of demoniac advancement. Hiranyakasipu was the beginning of this atheistic civilization. And Prahlad Maharaj was the opposite. He was Ahlad, transcendental bliss. That when we start to identify with Hiranyakasipu's philosophy, we suffer and we get misery. But when we identify with our real identity, then we experience bliss like Prahlad. That so now, text 4. My dear King Yudhishthira, once upon a time the king of the demons, Hiranyakasipu, took his son Prahlad on his lap. and very affectionately inquired, "My dear son, please let me know what you think is the best of all subjects that you have studied from your teachers." So this is the first confrontation between Prahlad and Hiranyakashipu. In this chapter, there are two confrontations. That's the first one. And Hiranyakashipu feels very affectionate to his son, and he will ask his son, what did you learn in school? The son comes from school, and the mother asks, what did you learn in school today? So we'll read a part of the purport in the middle. If one properly understands God, he understands any subject matter very nicely. Sometimes we have to challenge big scientists and philosophers, but by the grace of Krishna we emerge successful. It is impossible, practically speaking, for ordinary man to challenge scientists or philosophers concerning genuine knowledge, but the devotee can challenge them, because the best of everything is known to a devotee by the grace of Krishna, as confirmed by Bhagavad Gita. Tesham emanakam pratamam magyana chamtama nasajami atma bhavasto jnanati panna bhasvata. Krishna is situated in the core of everyone's heart as a super soul, dissipates all the ignorance from the heart of a devotee. That's our devotee gets a real knowledge so to get this knowledge for us, we can study the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, to the best of our ability, and then especially when you want to teach, when you want to preach to others, you prepare your class, you study to the best of your ability, but then you pray to Krishna. You pray for help for Krishna. And Krishna will make up for what you lack. And that is the mercy of Krishna for the devotee. So Srila Prabhupada says that a demon knows everything, and if it says that a devotee knows everything, and if he doesn't, Krishna will make up for it. That's interesting. Krishna within the heart will inspire us. And now text 5. Here Prahlad will reply. And that's a very famous verse. So Shri Prahlad Vacha Tat Sadhu Manye Soyavayadenam Sada Samadvishyadhyam Asatyahat Itvatma Padam Hyamanda Kupam Panam Kaikhato Yantarimasrayita. Prahlad Maharaj replied, O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen into a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan And one should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I just read the first part of the purport, first line. Hiranyakas put out that Prahlad, being nothing but a small boy with no actual experience, might reply with something pleasing, but nothing practical. Prahlad Maharaj, being an exalted devotee, had acquired all the activities of education. So, Srila Prabhupada says going to the forest. And he mentions in the forest of Vrindavan, where Krishna consciousness is prevalent. That's interesting. So Prahlad Maharaj says to his father, now it's time for you to take Vanaprastha. That's leave all this management and go to the forest of Vrindavan. So one of the purposes of Vanaprastha life is to go to Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada writes. So I read the last part of the purport. Prahlad Maharaj recommended that his father accepted Vanaprastha life because as a Grihastha, he was becoming increasingly demoniac due to body attachment. Prahlad recommended to his father that accepting Vanaprastha life would be better than going deeper and deeper into Shriyam Andakupam, the blind well of life as a Grihastha. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore invite all the elderly persons of the world to come to Vrindavan and stay there in retired life, making advancement in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So the idea is, come to Vrindavan, don't go back. Go to Goloka Vrindavan, don't come back. Hiranyakasipu had stood for thousands of years on his toes just to get his lordship over the universe. And Prahlad Maharaj tells him here, go to Vrindavan, give up all this. Obviously, his father was thinking, what is wrong with this boy? What happened to my son? Because Prahlad Maharaj was not telling what his teacher Sanda and Amarka had taught him, but what Narada Muni instructed him. Prahlad Maharaj understood that his father was where his father was getting at. But he chose to give his father the best thing. He says, he used the word Shriyam Andakupam. These are heavy words about Grihastha life. That why Prahlad Maharaj is saying Andakupam, a dark well. You are in the middle of the well and you are crying and nobody comes. Why is he describing it like that? Grihastha life is not like that, but Shriya life may be like that. Anda means blind. So dark you can't see. In Grihastha life also there is a tendency to Shriya life. Just thinking of your own family. Devotees are not always like that. Some engage in full preaching activities. Srila Prabhupada sent 6 couples to London. But they are doing similar activities to Shriya life, but in Grihastha life there is a limit, whereas in Shriya life there is no limit. What is the basic difference between Shriya and Grihastha? All the assets of a Grihastha is contributing to Krishna's service, This is a chance to surrender. There is responsibility. The center is Krishna. Whatever you have, you use in the center and in the service of Krishna. The goal is different. The goal is detachment. That being married is for some time. It's temporary. Even youngsters, when they want to conceive a child, sometimes they ask permission from the Guru. The Grihastha has always the goal of life in front of him. Srila Prabhupada said, every home should be a temple. The devotees are living in the temple, even at home or in the temple. The Giramedi is blind to the absolute truth. They don't inquire about the absolute truth. They see that they are temporary, but still they go on. We see the Panchatattva, 5 members of the Panchatattva. 4 of them are Grihastha. When Srila Prabhupada started the movement, first they got all the hippies married. Then Srila Prabhupada sent them out for preaching. 6 Grihastha couples, 6 Grihasthas with 3 couples. He sent to London. Yes. Srila Prabhupada said, my spiritual master sent sannyasis and brahmacharis, and I sent Grihasthas. There was Yamuni, Malati, Gurudas, Yamsundar, Mukunda, Janaki. They all got married when they became devotees. In 1974, Srila Prabhupada visited Hong Kong. Srila Prabhupada was very sick in 1974. We were doing 24-hour kirtan at that time in all temples. So Burijan was in Hong Kong in 1974, and when Srila Prabhupada asked him when he visited Hong Kong that he would like some ginseng, which is this root very good for health. Srila Prabhupada said, no, if I'm sick, I don't want to go I don't want to go to any hospital. Just put tulsi leaves on my head. That is my medicine, kirtan and tulsi. This is our philosophy. We see old people in the West, and they go to old folks home. And I know personally, because more than 30 years ago, I was administrative head of a geriatric department in a hospital. And I saw these old people, 80, 90 years old. And the family would bring them in the beginning to the institution, and sometimes during the next weeks they would visit, but after 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, you don't see anyone anymore. They are just left there. They are forgotten by their relatives. But in the Vedic civilization, they took care of their old parents. Of course, the husband would take sannyas and the wife would do the puja. Now we see in the West, they don't care for old people. So in this verse, Prahlad Maharaj said, Asurya Varyanam. It's very polite. He says, you are the best of the demons. So this is the first confrontation between son and father in this verse. Prahlad Maharaj says, you are killing yourself in a dark well. Leave this. Go to the forest and take shelter of Krishna. And what was the reaction? Hiranyakashipu, he became very angry. We should take lessons from Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj never submitted to Hiranyakashipu. Never. Even though he was put in so many distress, in such a distress by his father. he never forgot his chanting. He was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prahlad never forgot. Even when we are in danger, we should not forget Krishna, and Krishna will save us. So previously you have studied the 6th canto, and we have 6.3.28 Yamaraj instructing the Yamadutas. The Paramahamsas are exalted persons who have no taste for material enjoyment. That they have no taste for material enjoyment because they are always drinking the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. My dear servants, Yamaraj says, bring me for punishment only persons who are averse to the taste of that honey, who do not associate with Paramahamsas and who are attached to family life and worldly enjoyment, which form the path up to hell. So here again, Yamaraj is saying, bring these Kriya Medis. So Srila Prabhupada was lecturing on this verse in Gorakhpur in 1971, and he was quoting, just bring me these persons who are averse to the lotus feet of Mukunda, those who are not associating with pure devotees, those who are, and he said, those who are not becoming life members. He was a good preacher, Srila Prabhupada. He knew how to preach. So Kriya life is the path to hell, the path to Yamaraj. So here is saying Andakupan, a dark well. And in the other verse, he said the path to hell. So we should be careful with Kriya life. We may even have that mentality, even we are not, even if we are Shriyastas. We may be in some other ashram still have that Kriya mentality. Srila Prabhupada, when he was in London, he was living at John Lennon's house, and on it was Tittenhorst was a great estate, and there in the gardens somewhere there was a dark well. You could not see it because it was covered with grass. You could just be walking and go down, and nobody would hear you. Yeah, that is what Prahlad Maharaj is saying about Kriya life. So Srila Prabhupada said at another time, they don't see the snake of time is coming. And Hiranyakashipu does not see Lord Nrsimhadev coming to kill him. There are many other quotes on this subject. I just have selected a few. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.13.8. Sometimes a merchant in the forest wants to climb the hills and mountains, but due to insufficient footwear, his feet are pricked by small stone fragments and by thorns on the mountain. Being pricked by them, he becomes very aggrieved. Sometimes a person who is very attached to his family becomes overwhelmed with hunger, and due to his miserable condition, he becomes furious with his family members. Srila Prabhupada in that purport writes, there is no benefit in transferring from one forest to another. One must go to the Vrindavan forest and take shelter of Govinda. That will make one happy. ISKCON is therefore constructing a Krishna Balaram temple to invite its members as well as outsiders to come and be peaceful in a spiritual atmosphere. That will help one become elevated to the transcendental world and return back to Godhead. So that was the desire of Srila Prabhupada for the temple in Vrindavan. There is another lecture where Srila Prabhupada explains that these Jayamedis, they are trying to enjoy this world. Even if I will not be enjoying, I will stay here, they think. But no, Bhagavad Gita says, Dukkalayam asasvatam. It is only miserable. You can't stay here either. There in the Vedic civilization at age of 50, one is supposed to live a comfortable home life, is supposed to live the comfortable life at home. In the Vedic civilization, when you are 50, you must go out, leave the comfortable life of home, and take sannyas. It's just like children, they play on the beach and they make a sand castle. And then the parents say, oh, we have to go home. So everyone is making their sand castles, all made of sand. It won't last, nothing in this world. Now Krishna is coming and says, now it's time to go, let's go home. And the fortunate children will go home with the father. And some will just stay there on the beach. They will stay on the beach and rot. Text 6. Narada continued. When Prahlad spoke about the power of self-realization in devotional service, thus being faithful to the camp of his father's enemies, Hiranyakashipu, the king of the demons, heard Prahlad's words, and he laughingly said, thus is the intelligence of children spoiled by the words of the enemy. So at the end of the purport, last line, Hiranyakashipu naturally became increasingly angry, and his Prahlad was being influenced, angry that his son was being influenced by the camp of the enemies. He therefore asked the saintly person, he asked that saintly person like Narad not be allowed within the residential quarters of his son. Otherwise, Prahlad would be further spoiled by Vaishnava instructions. So Hiranyakashipu is now increasing the guards. Verse 7. Hiranyakashipu advised his assistants. My dear demons, give complete protection to this son at the Gurukul, where he is instructed, so that his intelligence will not be further influenced by Vaishnavas who may go there in disguise. I think you have all read the section before. Can someone tell me what were the teachings of Sanda and Amarka? Please raise your hand if you want to speak. What were the teachings? What were they teaching? What was Prahlad Maharaj supposed to learn from them? Yes, Vishalaksha Prabhu, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj?
Yes, please.
Yes. The teachings of Chanda and Amarka is that Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Always they teach us these four things. Do more sense gratification.
Yeah. we
The Kama Moksha, these are the things they teach us always.
yeah, we will see in the purport that they are teaching Trivarga, Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Moksha they are not teaching. That, but it's true that these are the four materialistic goals of society. Something else they teach. Someone else wants to contribute? Yes, Mother Prabhupada Priya.
Another thing is diplomacy, like how to get people to do what you want, basically, and think and be happy with that. Or sometimes they say that diplomacy is the art of letting someone else get your own way.
Yeah, we will hear later more details of this diplomacy. That four ways how to deal with enemies, but that will be explained later in the purport. Thank you. Yeah, Pavitra Prabhu, please speak. That yes, Pavitra. It seems a problem with the mic. That okay. Then so what were they teaching? That we will hear the purport. That in our Krishna conscious movement, the tactic of dressing oneself like an ordinary karma is necessary because everyone in the demoniac kingdom is against the Vaishnava teachings. That's an interesting point. Very practical. That Krishna consciousness is not at all to the liking of the demons in the present age. As soon as they see a Vaishnava dressed in saffron garments with beads on his neck and tilak on his forehead, they are immediately irritated. They criticize the Vaishnavas by sarcastically saying Hare Krishna, and some people also chant Hare Krishna sincerely. In either case, since Hare Krishna is absolute, when one chants it jokingly or sincerely, it will have its effect. The Vaishnavas are pleased when the demons chant Hare Krishna because this shows that the Hare Krishna movement is taking ground. The greater demons like Hiranyakashipu are always prepared to chastise the Vaishnavas, and they try to make arrangements so that the Vaishnavas will not come to sell their books and preach Krishna consciousness. Thus, what was done by Hiranyakashipu a long time ago is still done. This is the way of materialistic life. Demons or materialists do not at all like the advancement of Krishna consciousness, and they try to hinder in many ways. Yet preachers of the Krishna consciousness must go forward in their Vaishnava dress or in any other dress for the purpose of preaching. Sanakya Pandit says that if an honest person deals with a great cheater, it is necessary for him to become a cheater also, not for the purpose of cheating, but to make his preaching successful. So we have this Sanna and Amarka. They are teaching Trivarga, Dharma, Artha, and Kama. They are teaching politics and economics. They are teaching sense gratification. Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu means soft bed. That for the demons, that is their goal in life. And we can understand from the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita talks about this mentality that let's just get here a few verses of the 16th chapter that this is our demoniac person thinks. So much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He's my enemy, and I've killed him. My other enemies will also be killed. I'm the Lord of everything. I'm the enjoyer. I'm perfect, powerful and happy. I'm the rich man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity. Thus I shall rejoice in this way. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. So this is the mentality of the demon. So if we understand their mentality, we can understand that their education is based on that mentality. First, yeah. So Kamsa, he was ready to kill even his nephews, his sister. That's when Bhujambavu was lecturing on these related verses of the Bhagavatam. He told a story about Stalin and Churchill. Stalin was the leader of the Russian army and Churchill was the leader of the English army. They were fighting with the Germans in during the Second World War. So at the end, there was a victory party where Stalin and Churchill met together in London. We know from history that Stalin, he killed so many of his countrymen. People for him were very cheap. It's like Mao Zedong, who was killing all of his friends at the end of his life. He was so paranoid. He was killing everyone who was close to him. And Stalin was like that. So they had their party and both of them got drunk. And they were speaking things they shouldn't be spoken, secrets. Then the next morning when Churchill woke up, he said to Stalin, "Oh, you know, yesterday I said so many things I shouldn't have said." Stalin said, "Don't worry. I already killed the translator." So this is demoniac mentality. You go to serve a demon, and what is your reward? People should think twice before they serve materialistic people. People do anything for money. So devotees, they were distributing books at the airport, and they got a lot of opposition. Some devotees were being kidnapped by their parents. Their parents were hiring so-called deprogrammers, that's in the 1970s. They would kidnap a devotee, blindfold him, and they would take him to a motel and keep him locked up in the room. And they would expose him to blasphemy of their guru, of ISKCON, of the philosophy. They would deprive him from sleep and food. They had to hear this for 24 hours daily. Many devotees escaped. I know one of them was Praladananda Swami. He has the name of Prahlad. He was also subjected by his parents, even twice. Damodar Swami and Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj also. This was in the 1970s. Mostly in the 70s. This was happening in America when Prabhupada was there. The parents would pay a sum of $20,000 to kidnap their children and try to force them to eat meat, drink, take intoxication and illicit sex and everything, so that they would not become devotees. But many of them escaped and came back to ISKCON. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the point they get irritated that so there was a controversy when Srila Prabhupada was here whether they should wear karmic codes for preaching, for selling books. So they they were selling books, wearing wigs, and Prabhupada gave his sanction. He said, you should present yourself not like hippies, but just respectfully. That from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 14, text 5 in the purport. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of Maharaj Prataparudra, who also changed his dress to get darshan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as instructed by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Following Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's instructions, the king had given up his royal dress. He now enters the garden in the dress of a Vaishnava. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, sometimes members of ISKCON, especially in the Western countries, find it difficult to approach people to distribute books because people are unfamiliar with the traditional saffron robes of the devotees. The devotees have therefore inquired whether they can wear European and American dress before the general public. From the instructions given to King Prataparudra by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, we can understand that we may change our dress in any way to facilitate our service. When our members change their dress to meet the public or to introduce our books, they are not breaking the devotional principles. The real principle is to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, and if one has to change it into if one has to change in regular Western dress for this purpose, there should be no objection, Srila Prabhupada writes. Now I will read verses 8 to 11, that's and the short purports. 8. When Hiranyakashipu's servants brought the boy Prahlad back to the Gurukul, the place where the Brahmins taught the boys, the priest of the demons, Sanda and Amarka, pacified them. With very mild voices and affectionate words, they inquired from him as follows: that Sanda and Amarka, the priests of the demons, were eager to know from Prahlad who the Vaishnavas were, who came to instruct him in Krishna consciousness. Their purpose was to discover the names of these Vaishnavas. In the beginning, they did not threaten the boys because when they threatened, he might not identify the real culprits. Therefore, they very mildly and peacefully inquired as follows: dear son Prahlad, all peace and good fortune unto you. Kindly do not speak lies. Just reply with the truth. These boys you see are not like you, for they do not speak in a deviant way. How have you learned these instructions? How has your intelligence been spoiled in this way? That Prahlad Maharaj was still a boy, and therefore his teachers thought that if they pacified the little boy, he would immediately speak the truth, revealing the secret of how the Vaishnavas came there to teach him lessons in devotional service. It was surprising, of course, that in the same school the other boys of the Daityas were not polluted. Only Prahlad Maharaj was supposedly polluted by the instructions of the Vaishnavas. The main duty of the teachers was to inquire who those Vaishnavas were that came to teach Prahlad and spoil his intelligence. Text 10. That, O best of your family, has this pollution of your intelligence been brought about by you or by the enemies? We are all your teachers and are very eager to hear about this. Please tell us the truth. Prahlad Maharaj's teachers were astonished that a small boy could speak such exalted Vaishnava philosophy. Therefore they inquired about the Vaishnavas who stealthily taught it to him, in order that these Vaishnavas might be arrested and killed in the presence of Prahlad's father, Hiranyakashipu. And now Prahlad is going to reply. That, so he's replying. Prahlad Maharaj replied, "Let me offer my respectful obeisance unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose external energy has created the distinctions of my friend and my enemy by deluding the intelligence of man. Indeed, I now actually experience this, although I have previously heard it from authoritative sources that so what are these authoritative sources Prahlad Maharaj is speaking about? It is Narada Muni. But Prahlad also heard from his teachers. This is your friend and this is your enemy. Now he's getting practical experience. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says all living entities are one. Let's read a part of the purport that at the second paragraph. As servants of the Supreme Lord, all living entities are one, but the Vaishnava, because of his natural humility, addresses every other living entity as Prabhu. A Vaishnava sees other servants to be so advanced that he has much to learn from them. Thus he accepts all of the devotees of the Lord as Prabhu's masters. Although everyone is a servant of the Lord, one Vaishnava servant, because of humility, sees another servant, its master. Understanding of the master begins from the understanding of the spiritual master. And then we have, I'm going to the last paragraph of the purport. As long as one adheres to the philosophy of duality thinking, one person a friend and another an enemy, it should be understood in the clutches of Maya. The Maya philosopher who thinks that all living entities are God and therefore one is also mistaken. No one is equal to God. The servant cannot be equal to the master. According to Vaishnava philosophy, the master is one and the servant are also one, but the distinction between the master and the servant continues even in the liberated stage. In the conditioned stage, we think that some living entities, some living beings are our friends, where other enemies, and thus we are in duality. In the liberated stage, however, the conception is that God is the master and the living entity are his servants are one. So, Srila Prabhupada says, all living entities are one. My question to you is, how are living entities one? So if someone wants to answer this question, please raise your hands. How are all living entities one? That yes, Mother Divya Lila.
The oneness is qualitative oneness, Maharaj.
And what does it mean?
That the Lord also has the Sachidananda Vigraha, and similarly the Jivas form this, the real Swarupa of the Jiva is also Sachidananda Vigraha.
That's
And,
something what we have in common. That's true, but it's not what Srila Prabhupada is meant here, is meaning
and
here.
the interest of the Lord and the servant is the same.
That's the point we want here. Oneness of interest.
Oneness interest.
Yeah, that's good.
In the material world, my interest is different. Like
Yeah,
I'm concerned about more concerned about myself, my senses, whereas in the spiritual life it is like where the Lord is the center and everyone's interest is the same, to satisfy the Lord.
yeah. Okay. The oneness of interest. And how is that expressed here in the purport? It is said we are all servants of the same master. So before Srila Prabhupada went to the West, when he was in Vrindavan, he was preparing to go. And I'm just reciting a remembrance from Krishnadas Babaji. Krishnadas Babaji, he was a Sanskrit scholar living near Govardhan. So this experience of Krishnadas Babaji with Srila Prabhupada sees how Srila Prabhupada saw this oneness of interest and saw himself just as a servant in that plan of the Lord. He said, I have one special remembrance that occurred during our regular meetings that Krishnadas Babaji says. So I have one special remembrance that occurred during our regular meetings at Bon Maharaj College. Srila Prabhupada used to meet with different scholars, writers at Bon Maharaj College at every week to share their works for suggestions in the Sanskrit. So Prabhupada used to meet with these different scholars. This particular scholar, Krishnadas Babaji, who said about Srila Prabhupada, he had every intention to spread this Krishna knowledge in the West, despite all obstacles. He would always speak of this task of service and was always looking for it. He was always looking for opportunities for some way or another to travel to the West. Most of us at that time were quite doubtful that he could succeed to go. He was practically penniless. Then he had no sponsors or connections. Many of us were not favorable for Indians to go to Mleccha countries. We did not encourage them. Nevertheless, he was undaunted. One day, he completed his third volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. So you have this, he got the first canto printed in 3 parts, and the third part was printed. He was carrying it in his hands. He was carrying in his hands each of the 3 books, the 3 volumes. He explained to our group how he had finally printed the last book, and now the books are ready to go to the West. In a very sweet way, he formally asked if we all would bless his books so that they would be able to cross the ocean and be successful in spreading Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness in those Western countries. He passed carefully 3 stacks of books and asked each of us to touch them and offer our blessings, which we did. Immediately after he did he did something quite remarkable. He explained with deep seriousness how these books, now we blessed, could not go over the ocean by themselves. Someone would take them there and popularize them and distribute them to the public. He then humbly requested with folded hands to our assembly to also bless him to accompany these books and spread them on their behalf. And this way, it took us all by surprise and all felt moved to give our full blessings to him and his mission. At that time, how a remarkable Vaishnava he was to request such blessings and arrange for receiving them so wonderfully. I remember when I gave my blessings, Krishnadas Babaji said, when I gave my blessings to him, I felt a spiritual surge in my heart. Srila Prabhupada said that many years later, now it stands strongly in history, that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was successful in carrying out his heritage and philosophy to the whole world. So Srila Prabhupada said, yes, the success is with my Guru Maharaj. I feel honored to have in some very small part I feel honored to have in some very small part of that glories, taken part in this glories. This is Prabhupada's humility. Everyone is a servant, and thus this unity. Everyone cooperates. In the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada calls the soul the cooperator. Srila Prabhupada saw everyone as his Prabhu. He was asking the blessings of all these Sanskrit scholars in Vrindavan for his books, not for his books and then for himself. So in the last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada speaks of, in the last paragraph of this purport of 11, verse 11, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the relationship with, speaks about a relationship that will continue even after liberation. That yes, that is our eternal relationship with Krishna. So even after liberation, Srila Prabhupada is our master. Hare Krishna. Now, text 12. That's when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with a living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a pandit and does not make distinction between enemies and friends and himself. Intelligently, he thinks every one of us is an eternal servant of God. Therefore, we are not different from one another. So this is answering the question, why is no one our enemy? Because we are all spiritual servants of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada will paraphrase Prahlad Maharaj in the purport, and we will have a selection of that purport. First, the first paragraph. When Prahlad Maharaj's teachers and demoniac father asked him how his intelligence had been polluted, Prahlad Maharaj said, as far as I'm concerned, my intelligence has not been polluted. Rather, by the grace of my spiritual master and the grace of Lord Krishna, I've now learned that no one is my enemy and no one is my friend. We are all actually eternal servants of Krishna, but under the influence of the external energy, we think that we are separated, that we are separately situated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as friends and enemies of one another. This mistaken idea is now being corrected, and therefore, unlike ordinary human beings, I no longer think that I am God and that others are my friends and enemies. Now I'm rightly thinking that everyone is an eternal servant of God, and that our duty is to serve the Supreme Master. For then we will stand on the platform of oneness and servants. So Prahlad Maharaj, his teachers and his master asked him, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm lost in my notes here. So we have read the first paragraph. Now I continue with the second, at the end of the second paragraph. And well, it's the beginning, a few lines down, second paragraph. Therefore, a Vaishnava treats other living entities neither as friends nor as enemies, but instead tries to spread Krishna consciousness, teaching everyone that we are all one as servants of the Supreme Lord, but are uselessly wasting our valuable lives by creating nations, communities, and other groups of friends and enemies. So everyone is conscious that others are also a servant of Krishna's. Mamabam Shochivelake Shiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are all part and parcels of Krishna. We are meant to serve the whole. In the 10th canto, we will learn here that all the other flowers in Vrindavan were conscious of Tulasi's supremacy, because she was the favorite of the Lord. That every other flowers, plants, they appreciated Tulsi's servants. That now we have at the end of the nearly the last part of the report. I think it's the last paragraph. Everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. Everyone should praise another's servants and the Lord to the Lord, and not be proud of his own service. So always praising another's service. Never be proud of our own service. This is the way of Vaishnava thinking, Vaikuntha thinking. There may be rivalries and apparent competition between servants in performing service, but in the Vaikuntha planets, in the service of another servant is appreciated, not condemned. This is the Vaikuntha competition. There is no question of enmity between the servants. Everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability, and everyone should appreciate the service of others. Such are the activities of Vaikuntha. That since everyone is a servant of everyone, everyone is on the platform and is allowed to serve the Lord according to his ability. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasyam Ritishan Vishtamati Pamsa. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart, giving dictations according to the attitude of the servant. However, the Lord gives dictations to the non-devotees and devotees. The non-devotees challenge the authority of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the Lord dictates in such a way that the devotees forget the Lord's service, life after life, and are punished by the laws of nature. But when a devotee very sincerely wants to render service to the Lord dictates in a different way, as the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satayuktam bhatsam pitapurkam tadami buddhyogantam yenamana payantite. Those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Everyone is actually a servant, not an enemy. And everyone is working under different directions from the Lord, who directs each living entity according to his mentality. So maybe we can all take a minute and think of some service of another devotee that we appreciate. So sometimes that is a good practice. That see the service attitude in others, appreciate other servants. Text 13. Persons who always think in terms of enemy and friend are unable to ascertain the super soul within themselves. Good question. Think about why is that? Not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with the Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. The same Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this situation has certainly given me the intelligence to take the side of your enemy. So here, Prahlad is answering this question. They are wanting to know where did you give this knowledge? And he's answering, I got it. That the Supreme Personality of Godhead gave me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. So Prahlad Maharaj is answering very strongly. It says, my way of thinking is not polluted. It's the result of the Lord's mercy, who is pleased with me. It is mercy. And now we will read the last verse of today, 14. And here an analogy is used that says, O Brahmins, teachers, as iron attracted by a magnetic stone moves automatically toward the magnet, my consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand. Thus I have no independence. Purport. For iron to be attracted by a magnet is natural. Similarly, for all living entities to be attracted toward Krishna is natural, and therefore the Lord's real name is Krishna, meaning he who attracts everyone and everything. So Prahlad said, what can I do? I'm attracted like a magnet. Because only Hiranyakasipu is not attracted, and those who follow Hiranyakasipu, they are not attracted. So I read the second part of the purport. Second paragraph. Just contrary to the affairs of Vrindavan is the material world, where one is attracted, where no one is attracted by Krishna and everyone is attracted by Maya. This is the difference between the spiritual and material worlds. Hiranyakasipu, who was in the material world, was attracted by women and money, whereas Prahlad Maharaj, being in his natural position, was attracted by Krishna. In replying to Hiranyakasipu's questions about why Prahlad had a deviant view, Prahlad said that his view was not deviant, for the natural position of everyone is to be attracted by Krishna. Hiranyakasipu found this view deviant. Prahlad said, because of being unnaturally attracted by Krishna. Unnaturally unattracted by Krishna. That Hiranyakasipu therefore needed purification. As soon as one is purified of material contamination, he is again attracted by Krishna. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatpad vana nirmalam. So I will now read from the 26th chapter. 26th chapter of the 10th canto. In the 10th canto, 26th chapter, the residents of Vrindavan went to Nanda Maharaj, and they asked Nanda Maharaj, "Dear Nanda, how is it that we and all the other residents of Vrindavan, Braj, we cannot give up the affection for your son? And how is it that he is spontaneously attracted to us? That is natural, that everyone has this attraction to Krishna. But unfortunately, we are in a material world, so one is naturally attracted to so many other things. We hear that in the Bhagavad-Gita 241. Vyapsatmika buddhi ekanako nanda bausak ananta sabudhi of Vyavasainam. That Bausaka Anantasa, so many other desires, so many branched intelligence is translated. That so many other things, so many different branches of attraction we have. That is the material mind. It takes us in so many different directions. But if we simply become attracted to Krishna, all our problems are solved. As during the discussion of the last section, Srila Prabhupada said that we should chant with a mentality of a child crying for the mother. We remember that, yeah? And what should be our prayer to Krishna? Please accept me. Srila Prabhupada said, if we chant with this mood, Krishna is coming personally and saying, says, please accept me, please accept me. Krishna says unto us, Srila Prabhupada says, we try to call Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, and Krishna answers, but our line is busy because the mind is somewhere else. Krishna comes, but where is our mind? The residents of Vrindavan could not give up their anurag, their constant attraction for Krishna. Their attitude was not particularly theistic because they were unsure whether he's God. Maybe he's a demigod. Maybe he's a demigod, but we love him. And this is all they knew. Lord Chaitanya said, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. To Devam itusam yajanu nanuraga nanu anuraga. No attraction, anuraga attraction. So that's our unfortunate. We cannot reciprocate with Krishna's anurag for us, but in Vrindavan everyone is attracted to Krishna. So in the 10th canto we can read how the cows are attracted to Krishna. Using their upraised ears, they were upraising their ears as vessels. The cows were drinking the nectar of the flute song flowing from Krishna's mouth. What is that flute song? What do we know about Krishna's flute? It is a Hare Krishna mantra. Gayatri also, but especially the Hare Krishna mantra. The cows were raising up their ears to hear Krishna's flute. The birds have risen into the branches of a tree. With closed eyes, they are simply listening to the sweet vibrations of his flute, not attracted by any other sound. These birds are on the same level as great sages. So we should have this desire for Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj says just like a magnet, that if you hear a kirtan, then it's just like a magnet drawing you there. You cannot even help yourself. You see a glimpse of the deities. You must go. I must go to the deities in the temple. That is Krishna consciousness, attraction for Krishna. So this is the section of today that we will now have 10 minutes break. And we will resume at 10 to 3. So in 10 minutes. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna, here we are again. Now we will go to a few themes or questions. First, we heard about Prahlad Maharaj's dislike of distinguishing between friends and enemies. Now, before we go into this, I would have a small request to all of you. Please learn how to work with this Zoom program. How to raise your hand so that it appears here for me on the screen. That take guidance of others if you don't know how to work with it, so that we can communicate smoothly. Mostly young devotees, they all know how it goes. That just have a talk with him and ask them to show you how to use it, and then we can communicate more easily. So, can someone explain me Maharaj's dislike of distinguishing between friends and enemies? Why is bringing up that point, and what's the basis of his dislike? So, Sanatan Prabhu, please speak.
First, as referred at the third sloka, it is that it was in the teachings which he was receiving in the so-called Gurukul. And then at 11, when he's again approached by the teachers, he's saying, so now I can actually see, it is in front of my eyes that you guys are thinking that I'm siding with the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
First it was taught in that school, and then afterwards the teacher also, how you calling it, showing the behavior on their own persons by saying that you have been taught by the enemy. Where is the enemy who has taught you those wrong things of taking side of Vishnu or having affection for him?
So in summary, why did Prahlad Maharaj dislike to make a distinction between friends and enemies?
Because as we heard in the later part, that we are all servants of the Lord, all the living entities. There's no point of being a friend or enemy. That doesn't exist. All living entities are the servant of the Lord, and we all have to surrender ultimately.
Okay, that is certainly one point that is made, an important point, essential point. Thank you, Sanatan. Mother Kasturica, you want to add something, please?
Yes, Maharaj, Hare Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj did not approve distinction between friends and enemies, because it creates favorism between some people, accepting them as mine and some people as enemies. And he also sees that this is the working of the external energy of the Lord, which is deluding us and getting back us to the bodily concept. So there is no mood of servitorship.
Okay, we get a few other points there. Servitorship, that the workings of Maya. Thank you. And that Mother Kasturica, please speak.
I spoke, Maharaj.
Oh, okay. Sorry. That now we have Avinash Mathur. That's a following.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, please.
Whatever I had to say is already covered by Kasturika Mataji. It is he thought that this seeing of friend and enemies was bringing him back to this material conception, and that is the illusion of Maya. It does not take it away from the true constitutional position in which all jivas are situated. That's why it is like this.
Yeah. So that's based on false ego. Thank you. That's another aspect. Thank you. Vasudev Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. So Prahlad Maharaj says that when the Lord is pleased with the living entity, then he becomes Pandita, and that's when he is not able to, can rise above the distinction of, okay, my friends, my enemies, because then he is actually able to be real intelligent. He can think that, oh, everyone is of one of us is actually the real servant of God, and we are not different from another servant. And then the second point he makes is that people who are actually thinking always in terms of mine and like enemy and friend are not able to ascertain that the Lord as Paramatma Super Soul is within themselves. So that is why what to speak of them, even exalted persons like Brahma, who are fully conversant with the Vedic literature, then they also get sometimes bewildered. These are the 2 points which Prahlad Maharaj makes.
This is a nice summary. Krishna conscious means transcending these dualities of I and mine. If one cannot transcend it, one cannot perceive the super soul in the heart, and one will not get the mercy of the Lord. And will not get perfect vision. Very good point. Rasala Prabhu, you want to add something?
Yes, Maharaj. In the purport 3rd and 11 together, Vaishnav sees, the devotee sees all living entities equally. So it doesn't make any distinction. He sees the other living entities as the servant of the Lord. And Prabhupada explains, in the liberated stage, the conception of the God is the master, and all living entities are the servant of the Lord. So he sees, a devotee sees other living entities as the servant of the Lord. And Prabhupada explains this understanding is not artificial. This is because of his experience. And any conditioned soul who is thinking the one is enemy, one is a friend, is under the clutches of Maya. And so this oneness is possible, Prabhupada explains, is because of his understanding, not artificial thinking. So this is, Maharaj, what I've read from you.
Yeah, we heard about the story of Krishna Das, Babaji. Krishna Das, not the scholar, but we heard the story that Srila Prabhupada saw others as servants, and he needed their blessings, and so that he could serve nicely. And that's interesting. That's also oneness. Thank you. Good point. Mother Prabhupada, Priya?
Hare Krishna Raj. Yeah, Prabhupada says in the purport of text 11, he makes this point that actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the friend of all living entities. So usually if you have a friend in common who's a very dear friend, then the two people who have the same friend will also be friends. So, and in the same way, he says that the Lord is the supreme master and we're all servants. So similarly, if you're working for the same person, then you're colleagues, then generally you're going to have, you know, some bond of a relationship there. So, yeah, so the reason that Prahlad Maharaj doesn't like the distinction is because it's putting, you know, the Lord, it's putting Krishna out of the picture. If the focus is on Krishna, then there's not going to be this distinction, because it will all be like members of the same family, and it's kind of like two brothers or two sisters thinking, I don't like you. But if the focus is on that person that's unifying you, then yeah, then you'll see the unity.
Yeah. So if we realize that Krishna in our heart is our best friend, then yes, then we realize that the Lord is our well-wisher. That is a good point. We will come back to that a little later. That Vishalaksha Prabhu, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, here Prahlad Maharaj is explaining the distinction between the friends and enemy is that from materialistic conception point of view. Suppose a person is satisfying my sense gratification, I consider him as a friend. If they don't satisfy my sense gratification, I consider them as enemies. So that kind of distinction Prahlad Maharaj is rejecting.
Oh, that's a nice addition. That explains really the relationship with our false ego identifying with the body. That thank you, Vishalaksha Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Very good. So we heard many aspects of this distinguishing between friends and enemies. I'm just going to read again some parts of the purport which are essential to answering this question. But all you said makes an addition to that and makes it more complete. So in purport 3, a devotee sees that every living being is part and parcel of Krishna. Mamai Vamso Shiva Bhuta. Therefore, a devotee treats friends and enemies equally by trying to educate them both in Krishna consciousness. That although Prahlad Maharaj was obliged to hear the instructions of Sanai Namarka, he did not like the philosophy of friends and enemies, which forms the basic of politics. He was not interested in this philosophy. These teachings we should always remember, that then we may get out of unnecessary politics within ISKCON. We are not yet on that stage. There is still some politics, and that's based on this principle, demoniac principle, that let me offer my respectful obeisance unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose external energy has created the distinction of my friend and my enemy by deluding the intelligence of man. They forget themselves and their relationship with Krishna. And then the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog-eater, outcast, Pandita. Those who are actually learned, the equipoised, advanced devotees who have full knowledge of everything, do not see any living entity as enemy or friend. Instead, with broader vision, they see that everyone is a part of Krishna, as confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shivera Shrupta Hare Krishna Nitya Das. Every living entity is being part of the Supreme Lord is meant to serve the Lord, just as every part of the body is meant to serve the whole body. So this is a basic point of our philosophy. there is a question in the chat, but we will take that at the end. First, let's go to the questions. I discuss these questions with you because these questions will be part of a question bank, and you may expect questions from this question bank. That not all, but many of them. So if you participate, then you help to prepare for your assessment at the same time. So why did Prahlad Maharaj recommend that Hiranyakasipu retire to the forest? That to the Varna? Can someone answer this question? That yes, Vishalaksha Prabhu, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Prahlad Maharaj advises his father to go to a forest is because to find out Lord Hari and take his shelter.
Yeah, and
yeah, to find out to go to the forest Vana and take shelter of Lord Hari.
And what kind of forest?
Vrindavan forest.
Because Krishna consciousness is prevalent in Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada interestingly translated like that. Thank you, Vishalaksha. Mother Prabhupada Priya, but
yes, because his continuing to stay in household life was increasing his bodily attachment, which was causing his demoniac tendencies also to increase. And that was basically the cause of his suffering, and he knew that it would be the cause of his demise. So he wanted to help him.
He wanted to help him because he was in this Ananda Kupam, in this deep well of suffering, and he wanted him to come out of that. That because we heard in the previous chapter, he was never satisfied. That Mother Kasturika, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I was adding to this devotee's points. There's another point. He addresses him as the best of the asuras. So Prahlad Maharaj was able to see that he's so much asuric, and one can get that enviousness of the Lord only by engaging in devotional service. So he was recommending to go to the forest. Thank you.
Yeah, so it became too materialistic, and therefore was suffering too much, and therefore he wanted him to get out of that. Thank you, Mother Kasturika. Good. Mother Divya Lila, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo.
Why Prahlad Maharaj suggested his father to take up Vanaprastha life is because he was in the demoniac, increasingly demoniac due to bodily attachment. If he doesn't go, then again he has to come back not in the material life again. So that way he suggested to go to Vrindavan for the spiritual advance, the spiritual aspect. He was advising his father.
Okay, that's a point important for all of us. Thank you. Avinash Mathur, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Well, he is suggesting, advising his father that being in the material and family life, he would be always full of anxieties.
Yeah.
As he says, Sada Samudvigna Dhyam.
Yeah.
And with minds absorbed in I and mine conception. So, and he particularly refers to this blind well on the Kupa. So, by actions and reactions in this material world, and reactions to reactions, he will be perpetuating himself in this material existence. So, best is to take Vanaprastha route and retire and be in the service of the Lord.
Thank you. It's a nice summary. Thank you. Positive Krishna Prabhu, do you want to add something?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that apashyatam atmatattvam griheshu grihamedinam. So Prahlad Maharaj was suggesting his father to see actually what is the real welfare, because when he is in the householder, cannot see the real welfare of the eternal soul, but he wanted his father to get the real success in life, and that he should understand from the right sources that the real self-interest is and how to mold his life in the spiritual consciousness. So because of that, he was telling him to completely take shelter of the Lord, and in that way he can stop this material condition of repeated birth and death and go to the forest.
So then it would become alert, full of bliss like Prahlad. Yes, instead of dissatisfied. Thank you. So now we will see for the sections in the purport that answer this question. This is in text 5. One should understand himself to be part and parcel of Krishna, and thus completely take shelter of his lotus feet for guaranteed spiritual success. Everyone in the material world is in the body conception, struggling hard for existence life after life. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommended that to stop this material condition of repeated birth and death, one should go to the forest. Hare Krishna. Now, I want to speak about a relationship between two verses. The relationship between the Bhagavatam 7.5.13 and its purport to the question asked by Prahlad Maharaj in 7.1.13. So we will first read these two verses purport, and then we can discuss the relationship between both. First, we have here 7.5.13. Persons who always think in terms of enemy and friend are unable to ascertain the supersoul within themselves. Not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with the Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. The same personality of Godhead has created this situation. Who has created this situation has certainly given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. Now, this is the verse. Now, the purport that Prahlad Maharaj admitted frankly, my dear teachers, you only think that Lord Vishnu is your enemy, but because he is favorable toward me, I understand that he is the friend of everyone. You may think that I've taken the side of your enemy, but factually, he has bestowed a great favor upon me. And now, the beginning, the 711, the first verse. This was a question of Maharaj Pariksit. My dear Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, being everyone's well-wisher, is extremely dear to everyone. How then did he become partial, like a common man for the sake of Indra, and thus kill Indra's enemy? How can a person equal to everyone be partial to some and inimical to others? So how does this previous purport and verse relate to answering these questions? Someone wants to comment? Yes, Mother Prabhupada Priya.
Well, Krishna is equal to everyone in that he reciprocates with everyone according to their attitude towards him. So because Prahlad was seeing Krishna as his best friend, then Krishna was very friendly towards him and protected him and supported him, and like that made him happy. And because Hiranyakashipu saw the Lord as his enemy, then Krishna reciprocated also with his attitude by acting as his enemy and coming and fighting with him and killing him. So in both cases is equal because he equally reciprocated with the person's attitude.
So what did Prahlad, that's a very good points you make, but it brings up the point, what did Prahlad advise Hiranyakashipu to change so that he could understand that Vishnu is his well-wisher? So, Mahasingha Prabhu, can please speak?
Clearly, because Lord is equal to everyone, whether he is a devotee or a demon, and he is well-wisher in every situation. For example, I would like to give an example here. Like for example, the magistrate, he may reward someone good money, and he may pronounce sentence to death to somebody, but he is neutral in doing both the declaring both the situations and decisions, because whatever is for ultimate good for the person he is doing. So it is not correct to blame on the Lord that he is partial to the devotees. Actually, he is equal. He is having the equal vision, and he loves both the same. And this feeling of friend and enemy is falsity.
So that's observation, that's correct. But then the question is, what must Hiranyakashipu do to understand that? Vishalaksha Prabhu, do you want to comment on this?
Yes. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, please.
Yes, Maharaj. We can take actually these two purports reference from Bhagavad Gita. First, the appearance of the Lord Krishna comes for three reasons. One is to protect his devotees and to punish his demons and to make pastimes for the pleasure of devotees and Lord himself. So if you take all these 3 points, actually the purpose of Lord coming and actually is given in the 2 verses. And the friend and enemy concept is actually based on bodily conception. But here, the equal, when we forget that I am a part and parcel of the same Supreme Lord, that is the main, what you call the main problem, the relationship, that is the main we are missing link. The consciousness missing link is that I am a part and parcel of Krishna, that is I am forgetting. That's why I identify myself with the body, and I consider who is benefitor, who benefits me, I consider them as enemy. Who actually makes me bad, I consider them a good friend. So this is the main concept, that I am forgetting that I am a part and parcel of Krishna. But like a Lord is a supreme father, the father is equal to all his children, parts and parcel. But a favorable children, a obedient children, Lord shows them a somewhat good affection. But a disobedient son, Lord shows affection in a punishment way.
These are all good points, Vishalaksha Prabhu, and it's appreciated. The question we want to answer really is, why is it that Hiranyakashipu cannot understand and accept Vishnu as his well-wisher? Mother Kasturika, you want to add something to that?
Yes, Maharaj. In the text 13, Prahlad is saying that persons who always thinks in terms of enemy and friend are unable to ascertain the super soul within themselves. So one who comes in line with the super soul, they will have no distinction between enemy and friend. And this can happen only by engaging in devotional service. And by engaging in devotional service, they come under the direction of the super soul, and the super soul gives the intelligence so that they will understand that the Lord is actually the friend of the living entity, not the enemy. Thank you.
Yes, you got the point. That was the missing point. That and the essence of the answer here. But still, we want to hear from Vasudev Krishna Prabhu. You want to comment or add something?
Yes, Maharaj, Hare Krishna. So the answer also is a little bit tied to the verse 11, where Prahlad Maharaj is saying that, let me offer my obeisance to the Supreme Lord, because the Lord's external energy has created this delusion that, oh, this is my friend and this is my enemy. So Hiranyakashipu, because he is under this illusion, so he is considering Vishnu as enemy and some others as his friend. So he has to get out of this illusion to be able to actually understand that no, Vishnu is not his enemy, or he is not acting partially in that sense.
Yeah, and that Vishnu is really the doer of everything. He's only desiring that the super soul does everything. He's only desiring, but he's allowing Hiranyakashipu to do all these things. But he's in illusion, thinking himself the Lord of everything. So he forgets the super soul. That's the point made here. Thank you for your comment. Maharaj, please.
Yes, because due to the bodily concept, we cannot understand the presence of the Paramatma. So when he can go to the forest and practice and realize his natural position of being the servant of the Lord, then he will experience that Krishna is Suhradam Sarva Bhutanam. He is always friend to everyone in every situation, and that is possible only by practicing Krishna consciousness in going to Vrindavan.
Yes, he needs some purification. It's in the purpose. Thank you. Tribhuvanatha Prabhu. Tribhuvanatha Prabhu, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you, Sufa Maharaj. What are we seeing the purport also? Prahlad Maharaj wanted to reply that an attitude favorable towards Vishnu can be developed only when the Lord is favorable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. In the purpose that it's explained, Tesam evanagampatamam ajnana chamtamam nasachame atma bhavastu jnana dipana vashvatam. That's the point, that's the favor. Krishna cleanses the heart, and one becomes Krishna consciousness. One becomes Krishna conscious. Muralidhar Syampabu, anything to add?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Let's say my humble obeisances. It remind me to reflect Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, verse number 11. Maharaj, Krishna said that as you surrender, I reward accordingly. So we can see the Lord is not partial to anyone. As the demon, when they want something to object, the Lord still fulfill everything according to their surrender level. As a devotee, their only shelter is Krishna. So according to that, we can see that the Lord is not partial to the demon or to the devotee. So as their desire, so the Lord fulfill their desire according to their surrender and according to their level of surrender, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, very true. Thank you. So we will now see on the screen here the answer in a nutshell, but there are many, many other aspects we have heard to understand that in depth. Understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is a well-wisher of everyone cannot be achieved by those who think in terms of enemy and friend, because they cannot ascertain the super soul within themselves. Good. We have just a question in the chat here from Tribhuvanat Prabhu. The analogy of magnetic and the analogy of the spider web are more of impersonal notions of Krishna. But we have to understand how it is meant here, how it is meant by Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj explains about his attraction to Krishna. It's like iron going to a magnet. And then we heard all these examples from the Bhagavatam. That how the residents of Vrindavan asked Nanda Maharaj, how is it that we are so attracted to your son? So that's very personal. I don't think we have to search an impersonal meaning of that. Question 2. In ISKCON there is a notion of higher authority and a lower authority. This distinction creates like and dislike, which Prahlad rejects. Please comment. I don't know much about ISKCON politics. Sorry. I cannot answer this question. Even if I have knowledge about it, I would not go into it. Question 3. Prahlad addresses his father as the best of the demons. It breaches moral principles. Please comment, Maharaj. Yeah, this is a preaching style of Prahlad Maharaj. He's addressing his father respectfully. That's is telling his father, you are the sadhu among the demons. So it's very respectful. He's still his father. And if we are respectful to people, they will be willing to listen to us. But if we are too demoniac, they become angry. That's what we have learned. Good. Tomorrow we will discuss verses 15 till 24. Please read these verses ahead. We are now have smaller sections. These teachings of Prahlad Maharaj are very important. We will discuss tomorrow 3 important verses and go deep into it. So kindly read it ahead. And I'm looking forward to have you tomorrow again online. Thank you very much. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.